The topic of the today's webinar that we'll be covering today is roadmap for integrating GenAI into your business strategy. This session is primarily focused towards the CXOs, Chief Executive Officers, Chief Finance Officers, Technical Officers, CIOs. So, or the people who are just leading the generative AI teams or AI teams, or want to start including Gen AI into their business or into the strategy or into their day-to-day business operations, or want to understand how generative AI can help them improve their business. This is primarily targeted toward that. Okay. Although I'll be open toward getting questions from anyone, and we'll try to answer those questions. If those are not answered during the session, we'll answer those one to one. And if you have any specific queries also, you can always reach out to me or the team over the email or the LinkedIn. Okay, we'll get started. So in today's agenda, so we are covering four major points. One is the introduction, where I'll just share that what all we are going to cover in the session. Okay, what is generative AI, how generative AI has evolved in past couple of years, what are the trends in generative AI. Next, we'll be evaluating how businesses can evaluate their current business processes and include generative AI into those. And then we'll be looking at how we can select the foundation for generative AI, how to build the right foundation for any generative AI implementation in any organization. We'll be looking towards that. And then we'll be also looking at ensuring the ethical and the regulatory compliance with generative AI. So we'll be covering a part of responsible AI. Uh, that is, I think, super most important in the day to day. And then we'll be having the Q&A session where I'll try to answer the questions that you have regarding the session or generative AI in general. And then we'll be closing this session. The recordings of this session will be available for everyone once the session is closed. Within I think 24 hours, team will be able to share it with you. And anyone who's a CXO or is a business person joined us on the webinar, they can always reach out to us on for a consultation for a evaluation of their generative AI implementation strategy with us. They can book a meeting link. And in the webinar itself, if you can go to, so in the tabs, you will see a tab by the name of, there'll be tab by the name of CrossML, and there'll be a tab by name of booking a meeting that should be accessible, and you'll be able to book a meeting, but the link will also be shared to you. Okay, let's get started with the session now. So my name is Amarpreet Singh. I'm the co-founder in CrossML, and I have a total experience of almost around 15 years. And currently, I'm leading sales and marketing efforts in CrossML, but my primarily experience has been technology. I'm a tech enthusiast. I tend to follow what latest has been in technology, and generative AI has been part of CrossML's offerings for last year or so, and we have been working extensively on the technology. And today I'm excited to walk you through this comprehensive roadmap, how GenAI could be included in your business strategy. So let's just dive in. So from last year itself, implementation of generative AI is a top priority for businesses. And according to Gartner, like 80% of enterprises will be using generative AI in some form in next couple of years. So by 2026, 80% of companies will be using generative AI in some form. And I think most of us are using it in some form or other. So I just want to have a quick poll here. Quickly, everyone can jump onto the chat and just put in that whether they have used Chat GPT in some way, not Chat GPT, but generative AI in some way. They could be using Chat GPT, they could be using Mid Journey, DALL-E, any sort of image generation, code generation, text generation. So just answer on the chat if you have used generative AI models as such in your day-to-day or in the past time. Quickly, I'm just looking at the chat. Please go and answer it. Yes, Ditesh is saying he's using it. Yeah. So the answer is by Ishita. They're using ChatGPT, I think, primarily for content generation. The chatbot, Steve is saying he's using the chatbot. Yeah, so primarily from where ChatGPT or the generative AI got famous was ChatGPT, the generative AI application offered by OpenAI. So we day to day use it for content generation, content summarization, ideation, and all sort of applications. And now with ChatGPT 4 available, we can always like upload PDF files, upload images, and get the run same sort of operations with it. So ChatGPT has opened up a lot of potential for businesses to experiment new ideas, to explore new business ideas that could be done with generative AI. And this has been the primarily reason for the all the hype and all the growth that we have seen with generative AI. And that's why, according to research agencies at Gartner, primarily the organizations are looking at how they can include generative AI in their strategy. Okay. And let's move to the next part now. If how can businesses evaluate generative AI, how they can include it in their processes, how they can use generative AI in the existing processes that we have. So before jumping on to use generative AI or not to use generative AI, it's essential to understand how generative AI fits into your current set of processes and workflows that are available. So for any organization or for anyone, it's essential to first understand that, first begin with to map out how the current processes and workflows are being built. Okay, so what is the current technology stack you are using? What is your data infrastructure? How is the data being saved currently? Okay, so it is necessary to evaluate these before jumping on to running any experimentation with generative AI or deciding to go with generative AI. So, for example, if your data infrastructure is fragmented, the data is lying around in different databases, different formats, different places, so before jumping into generative AI, it's essential to get a data integration solution first, where you can normalize your data first and then look at how to utilize that data and build generative AI applications on top of it. So setting clear business objective is very critical. Okay, the generative AI initiatives need to align with overall business goals. So businesses need to ask themselves, well, will generative AI increase their efficiency? Will it generate better customer insights, or would they be able to innovate new products with it? Would they be able to cut down on cost of current processes that they have? So there needs to be clear goals, specific definitions, measurable objectives that needs to be put together before starting on to generative AI experimentation or journey. Now, for example, say a business wants to improve their customer service. Okay, so they should first set a measurable goal that they want to cut, say, the response time by X%, say 10%, 20%, or they want to increase, they want to decrease the cost that they are spending on customer service by this percent in a given time frame. So it's not a magical bullet that will start generating the results by the time it's implemented. We need to set a standard deadline, a standard timeline to achieve those goals. Say you should look at is that we'll reduce the response time by 30% in next 6 months or next 4 months. Then we'll be setting a goal that we can achieve by implementing that technology. So Gen AI is just a technology. Now, first questions that a business needs to ask themselves is, why are you pursuing generative AI? What value it will bring? How will you capture that value? Like, what are the use cases you want to pursue? That is very critical. Okay. And the next thing is conducting a feasibility study. So generative AI, as I told, is not a single bullet solution for every problem, every AI problem. There are matured AI technologies like computer vision, like machine learning, like deep learning that are already available. So we should look at what are the right use cases that could be solved with generative AI. Okay. And before starting, we should do a feasibility study. So feasibility study is a critical step. So the businesses should evaluate what is the necessary data that is required for, do they have the necessary data that is required to build a generative AI application? Are they are they willing to spend the amount of money and effort that is required to run the infrastructure? Because generative AI models training those models, running those models in production environment is costly. Doing experimentation on ChatGPT is cheaper. It's free of cost. You can go and experiment, spend $20 on a pro account, do the experimentation, or test something out with Copilot or Google Gemini. But when we are talking about real business use cases or productionizing those use cases, then a, a clear understanding of how much it will cost to run that infrastructure is necessary. Okay, and most importantly, what business impact it will make. So we need to understand the feasibility of the solution, the viability of the solution before starting building those solutions out. Let's move forward to looking at a framework that we are offering. So this is a framework of to understand that whether your current use case has a solution in generative AI. Now we go onto internet, we check all sort of blogs or posts by companies or individuals that tend to say that generative AI can solve predictive forecasting, decision making, segmentation of customer data. But we need to look at where is the best implementation of generative AI. And given the current maturity of the technology, so you can follow this chart for using as a framework to identifying whether your use case has a solution in generative AI. So if we consider, say, predictive forecasting, uh, there are uh, there are example use cases like risk prediction, customer churn prediction, sales forecasting, demand forecasting. So it has a very low success rates with generative AI models. So we need to understand generative AI models are language models. They are not statistical models. Now they could be fine tuned. They might be trained when they were trained on a large data, they might have been trained on some statistical data, but they are not specifically for statistical data analysis. Next is decision making, intelligent decision making. Again, uh, augmenting decision making, automation. There is low usefulness of the current generative AI models. Then segmentation and classification problems like clustering of customer data, customer segmentation, object classification. So these are like somewhat better with generative AI, but not as good as what traditional methods could give the results with. Again, recommendation systems, it's in low category, not it's in medium category, not a lower category, but it could be used if we are running it in a very fine-tuned way, but this is not a very good use case to use it in the current scope of generative AI models. Now, two areas where generative AI works best is content generation and conversational UI. So in content generation, it could be a textual content generation. Most of us use ChatGPT for that purpose for generating different contents. Now we have seen we have seen generative AI included uh, in tools like Microsoft Word, Google Docs is using it, Grammarly is using it, and day before yesterday, Apple launched their Apple Intelligent, where they're including these large language models into iPhone and the Mac and the other Apple devices, where they'll be able to generate the text, they'll be able to summarize the text. So best use cases of generative AI in with the current maturity of the technology lies in content generation. The next is the conversational UI, where ChatGPT, we have seen we use ChatGPT in a conversation way. So it's able to answer as a human is responding to our answers. So when we are building virtual assistants, chatbots, digital workers, augmenting current customer support representatives, their chat GPT or their language models or GPT models or large language models can perform in best way. So, for example, we at CrossML built a chatbot, a virtual assistant for one of the e-commerce companies, and they were getting a lot of customer queries in chat, emails, and we built them a large language model. We fine-tuned the model using techniques like RAG and prompt engineering, and it was able to answer to the real-life customer queries. So, if we are looking at two use cases, content generation and conversational bots are the two that will give us best results when with the large language models. Right, and let's move forward. Okay, so yeah, so the next part, once we have finalized our strategy, once we have selected the data, once we have selected the use case, is selecting the foundation for generative AI. So that involves, the first step that it involves is, so we need to define first that uh, whether we are using a image generation, whether we are using a code generation, a video generation, audio generation, text generation, or a search use case or a chatbot use case. Once we have finalized the use case and the domain of the use case, then we can select the foundation model. Now we can, so as the technology is not matured yet, it is, we are getting newer versions of each of these tools, like for GPT, for open source model like Palm or Claude or Midjourney, or all of the large language models or small language models are there. They are continuously being fine tuned and newer versions are being launched. So we need to keep ourselves experimenting with new models and select the best one that is working best for our use case. Now, there are fine tuned models for healthcare, there are fine tuned open source models for legal, their fine-tuned model for marketing and sales answering, or for finance domains. So we need to, according to our use case, we need to select the foundation model, the right foundation model that will be used in the application. Then we need to develop a robust data strategy. So that selecting a data strategy is very important. So what we need to define is, where is our data lying? So do we, where is our current data is being stored? Do we have data in databases or in form of PDF files, or it being, whether our data is available for us to be used? uh, who all have the access to the data? So the data is very critical for any generative AI if you want to fine tune it for a specific use case. Okay, so we can also leverage the unstructured data that is lying around with businesses. So for example, the manuals, the chats, the conversations, the phone conversations. Okay, we have someone joining in. Just a moment. So, so we need to look at all the data sources that we have, structured or non-structured data that we have, any chats with the customers, any standard operating procedure, or all the type of data that be lying around with the business. We need to evaluate that data, and then how we can use this data, how we can use this data to fine tune our generative AI models. That is very essential. That only will define how good our generative AI models are, how good our language models are performing. Okay, so before implementing any generative AI models, any language models, ensure that the business has a right and a robust data strategy that is available. Okay, they need to ensure that the data quality is good, data governance is good, the data is stored in an efficient way. Okay, and and businesses should not forget that all the compliances are being followed when they are building their data strategy. So techniques like, they must be compliant to, say, GDPR or whatever compliance are applicable towards their businesses. So they should be clear that the data is available in that form. Okay. And then is integrating these GenAI solutions. Now, GenAI solutions is not a single set of a tool that is that could be used. There is a whole pipeline that needs to be built in order to run that application. There is a knowledge part. I have defined it in this flow diagram that is there along with here. So there is a knowledge base that is the specific knowledge the business wants the language models to learn from. Then these are converted into embeddings and stored in the vector databases. Now there are various forms of vector databases. They are open source vector databases. They are managed databases available. We need to ensure that we are using the right tools. If we are going for an open stack, if we are using a private setup, and then accordingly the tools will be selected, and accordingly the LLM will be selected, whether we are going with a open sourced LLM, whether we are going with a, say, a commercially available LLM or something that is available off the shelf. So we need to make those decisions before starting on to the generative AI journey. And we should be flexible in choosing these tools. So there should not be any dependencies that, for example, so currently the businesses, one of the businesses, the problem businesses face is that some of the products that are built on these language models are dependent upon the model that is being used. So you see, uh, if the chat GPT or the GPT model goes down, the application that are built on them goes down. So businesses will not essentially want to depend upon a single language model. They should look at, say, a generalized way to connect with these language models and perform the operations they want to operate on it. Okay, and let's move forward. Now, okay, so how to select this right set of foundation models? So as we are discussing the foundation models, the language models, so first is the level of customization we want in our application. Whether our use case that we are building would could be built right on top of OpenAI's GPT model, or it could be built on top of Llama model. What is the size of the model? What is the customization we want? What are the inference options we want it to be there? What are the licensing agreements? Can we use the open source models or can't we use the open source model in our product? So we need to consider these options while selecting the models. What are the context windows? Very important. So when we are using a model like OpenAI's GPT, each call we make to their API cost us with the tokens we send there. The amount of data that is being processed by that language model, it costs us X amount of money. So the that is very critical how much that is costing us. The latency of model is very critical, that in how much time the model is returning the results to us. So we see that uh, managed services like OpenAI's GPT or Amazon's Bedrock Foundation models, they tend to have a very good response time as compared to the open sourced models when deployed on an infrastructure. So latency could be one use case for some of the businesses to consider while making their decisions. And I think we have discussed adopting how to build a data strategy, like identifying your data sources, then how to build those data pipelines, democratizing your data, developing data accuracy and data privacy processes, and how to consider the ethical practices in it, and then how to prepare it for pilot. So these two things are critical: selecting your right foundation models and building a right data strategy. Okay, and the next section that is very important towards building any generative AI application is ensuring the ethical and the regulatory compliances. Now, yesterday itself, when Apple has announced their Apple Intelligence and the generative AI models they are including in into their iPhone or the Macs or the devices. So one of the critical areas that they covered very well was the ethical and the regulatory or the privacy concerns that are there with generative AI models. Now we have all heard the news that OpenAI itself was sued by various creators, various news agencies, where various authors that their content was used without any approval as such from them. And there has been cases where the language models has been giving results that are biased, that are not fair. The reason for that is that the generative AI models are trained on, say, a large chunk of data, and the quality of data affects the quality of results that it gives us. So it becomes very essential to consider, say, the ethical and the regulatory compliances, and we need to have a responsible AI foundation built in when we are starting with our generative AI journey, so that we don't feel these challenges as a business, so we don't run into any issues when we are actually using the application, or when our actual customers are using these applications. Okay, so we need to ensure that how the AI model is making its decisions. Okay, and so explainable AI techniques should be incorporated. We should know that what data it's been trained on. Okay, there should be enough evaluation and the guardrails put on the generative AI. So for example, it should not return such type of results which might harm such some category of users. We should look at what our application is catering to, what kind of users it's catering to. We should put those guardrails on top of the generative AI solutions to so that we are compliant also, and our tools are not used for unethical users. And the generative AI models that we are using, we need to ensure that those remain say they are retrained and they are the feedback of the users is incorporated into the model itself. So we need to evaluate the benefit and the risks of the models before launching the applications. And we need to continuously measure the performances of the models also. So what are the gains, what are the accuracies, what are the user satisfaction levels? Are there any concerns the user might be able to running into? So we must have seen that the chat GPT application allows us a way to get our user feedback whether the answer is correct or not. So we should, all our of our generative AI applications should have a user feedback mechanism available into it, and that will help us like build more ethical application, more responsible applications. Let's move forward into a framework that could be used. I explain some of the things. Like first is the ethical use. So we should ensure the data that is used for our generative AI application is using a minimum bias, and this is a clear decision explanation while protecting user privacy. So uh, the data the model has been trained on, it should not have any such information like personal names of the users, say credit card of the users, phone number of the users, addresses of the users. While training the model itself, we need to remove these things. We need to hide these details from the model itself. Otherwise, at times, because of the generative AI model, it might give us unexpected results and it give us the results that the from the data it's been trained on. So the responsible AI or the ethical AI principles start right from the data preparation. One mistake that we generally do is we consider these ethical or responsible AI things to be considered in the last phase of the model. Once we have done the model training, model processing, optimization, fine tuning, and once we are into a production launch, then we consider that, okay, let's put some guardrails. Let's consider let's consider the ethical and responsible AI guidelines now. That's the worst way to do that, guys. So we need to put this from the start of the application, from the start of the development, right from the data preparation. So we need to ensure that we are legally compliant, we are ethically compliant, we are socially aware of what impact the application might have. We are including the right feedback loops to get the application's usage details. And we should look at the various governance models. Now, I think various companies had put together their governance models. Azure AI has their own guardrails, their governance policies available. Amazon has their guardrails available. And I think Apple has beautifully put together in their Apple Intelligence documents that they have released that how to have these responsible AI guidelines when you're developing these applications. So one of them is that uh, the foundation model should be used on licensed data. You should let your various authors of the data to opt out of that training data. And you should remove any personal identifiable information in the data. And you should remove the profanity and the low quality of content. So we need to consider all these factors while we are building these applications. So we have, in a nutshell, we have discussed three main things in this session. First one was choosing the right set of tools. First one was evaluating the right business use cases. Second one was choosing the right set of data and tools. And third one was putting right ethical and responsible AI practices. So these are the three main pillars of any successful generative AI implementation. And the final thoughts that I want to put together here is that uh, when you're starting any AI journey, generative AI journey, start with a use case that you feel that will transform the customer experience, will transform customers' business journey, or your employee or your workforce that is working with you. Now, when we are talking about generative AI in a workforce, we should look at how it can augment our workforce, not replace our workforce. Now, code generation can help our developers streamline their development processes. Similarly, it could help a marketing person to ideate new ideas, to ideate new contents. We should not look to replace the workforce, because the any AI model is prone towards errors. They are prone towards hallucinations. They should not be used without a human check on top of them. It could improve the human's performance, but it should be looked at as an augmentation of the workforce. And then there should be a right talent strategy for the business. They should train their users, they should train their workforce to understand the criticality, the ethical considerations, the right way to build the models, rather than just putting everything in the model or just testing out any random use cases and deploying it to the application. They should plan it in a way. They should plan the data strategy, plan the right model that needs to be chosen, all the consideration needs to be put together, and then only build the application on top of it. And as I already talked about it, embedding responsible AI from the beginnings, from the start, to build that framework that needs to be put together by the organization. Then only the success of the application is possible. Uh, all right, this was all that we had in this session, that covered the strategy that needs to be put together by businesses to build a generative AI application that could generate actual business results, have measurable goals, build the right strategy, and there'll be always the success after the transformation, after the building these right tools. And you can always reach out to me. My name is Amar. You can reach out to me. You can search me on LinkedIn. You can reach out to me over on LinkedIn. You can drop me a mail or a chat. I'll be happy to answer any questions or queries you have individually that you have regarding your business. You can always book a fee meeting with us at CrossML to evaluate your business strategies. And if you have any questions or queries specific to this session, you can put them in the Q&As or a chat box. I'll be happy to answer those queries. Okay, I'll try to go one by one. So there are a lot of them, and let me see. So what are the best practices should be followed while working on an AI project? I think we have covered the best practices: choosing the right set of model for your business use case, choosing the right set of data, and choosing the right set of framework is the three things that should be used while working on AI projects. Then we have how should we ensure data security and sustainability while using the generative AI? What are the ethical guidelines provided by the creators of Foundation? So we should look at the guidelines that are provided by various creators. The companies like AWS or companies like Azure are already providing us the guidelines, the ethical and the responsible AI guidelines that should be followed. What uh, what guardrails should be implemented while deploying these applications? What security should be implemented? So this should be considered before going live with any of these applications. Okay. Now we have a question: what advancements in generative technology should businesses keep an eye on, stay ahead of the competition in next 3 to 5 years? Now, generative AI, I've been working in AI for past say 10 years, and the pace at which generative AI has evolved is very rapid. We are getting newer versions every week, new things are coming up. So one key strategy that the businesses need to involve is they need to be rapidly evolving with this technical changes. They should incorporate the newer changes that are coming up. They should have the flexibility in their pipelines, in their data pipelines, to incorporate all sort of changes. For example, if there are any compliance changes in future, if there are any guidelines or ethical guidelines coming up from governments, from companies, then our strategy should be that we incorporate or we foresee those things that are coming up. Okay, we have a question here. I have an online business for flower and cakes, basically e-commerce. How can Gen AI help me? I think I should be able to answer that question because we already helped one of our customers do that. They were into e-commerce. They were specifically into e-commerce for footwear. Now, one of the challenges that businesses face primarily in e-commerce is responding to customer queries and how they can do it in a fast and rapid manner. So the traditional chatbots that are available, they are very slow. Uh, they are uh, they are decision based chatbots where they'll respond very set of specific set of answers. Virtual assistants that are based on language models can answer the customer queries like uh, what is my order status, where has been my order, what products are you offering, what are different description of the product. So it can answer all sort of queries that your a human will answer after looking at, say, a FAQ about a business. Say your flour and cake company has a list of question answers or list of policies or list of all the questions that a person might ask. So you can build a virtual assistant that will answer those questions, and it will improve the performance of your customer support by, say, our customer, the product that we build for our customers, they got 70% faster response rates, and they were able to cut the cost 5x with this virtual assistants. And moreover, these virtual assistants will answer in a tone that you want them to answer in. So personalization is the key here. Next, we have a question from Nick. What can I expect from integrating AI to our home construction business? All right, virtual assistants is one of them. Another use case is, now the home construction use case might, you might have a use case like creating, say, a customized documents or agreements that you might be preparing for your end customers. You can have a custom drafting solution that could be built on certain agreements that you prepare, so that there is a use case of generative AI over there. Virtual assistant is another use case. Creating virtual imagery is another use case for you, where you can create virtual imagery based upon certain set of prompts that are there. You can always have a knowledge base. For example, you have a standard operating procedure for your team to operate, to a way they are building the houses or fitting the equipments or doing all the activities that are there. So there might be some SOPs in the business. You can actually build a knowledge search use case where your team or any team member can go and search from a large set of documents, and they'll be able to get the answer to how to rightly use the tools, what are the SOPs that are set by the businesses for it. So knowledge search is another use case that could be used. Another question is there. I have an online business. Okay, there's a recommendation engine also. Yeah, the recommendation is now in the recommendation engine. I'll suggest going for the existing recommendation engine solutions that are there, that are ML based, that are way more mature than generative AI models. All right. Eddie has a question. What are the key steps in the technical implementation process of generative AI within an existing business infrastructure? So I think, Eddie, the key things has been covered in the session, that we need to select the right use case that we need to solve. What is the domain of our solution? Then we'll choose the right foundation model. Then we'll choose the right data that needs to be there to fine tune that model. Then we'll use that model, and we'll incorporate the right security and the guardrails on that model, and then only we'll build that application. Now, if you have specific questions regarding your business, you can always book a one-to-one meeting with me. I think Prabjot, can you share the meeting link over there in the chat? uh, any business owner, Eddie or Jitesh, or we had Nick, we had Vaishnav, we had, so all of the CXOs that are there, if who have joined in, they can book a meeting with me, one-to-one meeting. I can spare 15-20 minutes, half an hour to evaluate your business use case, and then I'll be able to go one-on-one with you and assess what uh, how your business can incorporate Gen AI into your strategy. And this is a free of cost consultation, and I'll be happy to assist in this one-on-one solutions. We have one more question: how to decide a vector DB? What should be the approach to decide the same? Okay, now there are various vector databases that are available. We should look at the current infrastructure that we want to build it on, whether we want to build our application in a private environment, then we can opt for an open sourced model, or we want to build, say, a highly scalable application in a managed environment, then we can go something towards a Redis, Redis-based vector DB. You know, an interesting fact is the generative AI model that the ChatGPT uses, the ChatGPT application that uses Redis vector DB as a backend to manage the data, the context or the context window of your questions. So it will keep the track of your chat history for say 10 old messages. So they will keep track in a vector database. Now, Prabjot has shared the meeting booking link. This is a one-to-one meeting with me. You can book a meeting with me uh, to evaluate your businesses, and we can go one-to-one in that meeting, and I'll be able to guide you in what specific use case is there for your business. Any more queries, questions, anyone? Okay, what would be the cost of generative AI integration? Very high for a small business. Is it worth it? Okay. Again, we need to evaluate the use case for a business. We need not to essentially reinvent the wheel. There are tools available with Amazon, with Azure, with GCP, where we can build this small use cases using these managed services that will cost not will cost less. We can look at the alternatives like ChatGPT assistants, uh, apps that are built on top of ChatGPT. We can look at the services like Amazon has, sorry, Microsoft has their Copilot service that is available. So we can always look the ready to market available product that are available in case of small businesses. So we can look at how we can keep the cost low and get the personalization or these features that could be leveraged. Okay, Jitesh, this is a technical query. So we can, the team from here could send you the links to how we can reduce the cost of, say, token consumption in a chat completion API. Now, there are various ways. There are prompt techniques that we can use. Can store the context, we can store the responses, the frequently asked responses in a cache or in a DB. We can use those techniques to reduce the cost. We can share you the exact guidelines for it over the email. Okay, we'll be closing in another couple of more minutes. Any more questions? Steve is saying that thanks for the session. I mean, if this session has helped you in any sense, it is. I'm really happy for that. And if it assists you in your journey in identifying whether GenAI has the use cases for your business, then yeah, it's worth the time spent. So what our team will do is we'll share the recording of this session on your emails. We'll also share the meeting links, the consultation links in the emails, and we have a we have a weekly AI newsletter that we share, and I promise that we don't spam anyone. So it's only AI related stuff that we share, nothing sales in there, and we'll share the newsletter to those who all interested. You can always opt out of that. It shares the recent trends and the technology trends related to AI on a weekly basis. It also shares the insights and the blogs and the case studies that we do as a company that are shared free of cost. It also has a combined webinars and the podcasts that we hold that are shared over there. Thanks everyone for joining in. Those who all are joining in late in their night, thanks for joining in. Those who are just starting their day, uh, have a good day today. Have an amazing day today. I look forward to all of you joining us in our future webinars also. We'll be hosting these webinars every week, specifically in generative AI and how it could be part of your business strategy. It'll be on various topics, sometimes very technical ones, sometimes more focused towards businesses. Do join us on these sessions, and I hope this session was a helpful for all of you. Thanks, everyone.